Life is full. It's full of beautiful moments, hard moments, and a whole lot of mundane in between. Often we find ourselves going through the motions, and we end up seeing mostly the hard, mostly the boring, and failing to see the good in our days at all. With Intention is a podcast about changing the narrative. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'm no expert at living intentionally. I'm just here to share my personal learnings alongside stories from others about how we're learning to see the beauty in the mundane, celebrate our beautiful, ordinary, everyday lives, and approach every aspect of them with intention. We'll talk about things like motherhood and family, reflecting and taking care of ourselves, our work, our homes, all the things that make up our days. My hope is that you'll leave our conversations reminded that our beautiful, hard, ordinary, mundane days, this messy life, it's full of good and it's full of purpose and it's meant to be lived well with the utmost intention. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome back to With Intention. This is episode 108. I'm your host, Desiree, and I am so excited to be talking with you today about the topic of burnout. Okay, I know what you're thinking. We've talked about this twice in the past month. At least if you have been following along with the podcast, in February, we did kind of touch on this topic a couple of times in February, twice to be precise about it. And we did this via a Q&A about pandemic burnout and how to keep going through the things that we are getting burnt out in now that we are a year into the pandemic. And then I talked to Sarah Erickson about her experience with burnout, more of like a clinical version of burnout that caused her anxiety and panic attacks. And she gave a lot of tips on how we can prevent ourselves from burnout in our motherhood in that episode. So I'll link both of those in the show notes in case you didn't listen in. But ever since those episodes, and as they've been shared, and as so many of you have shared with me how you really needed them, the topic of burnout has not left my mind. I think it's something that we all experience to one extent or another in several different areas of our lives. And today I just want to talk about how we can kind of make ourselves a plan to either prevent it or go into kind of rescue mode when we are feeling that burnout feeling. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a quick more and less list that I made for myself. This more and less list is kind of something that I plan to lean on, and these are things that I have already been leaning on as I have felt the burnout, especially through the beginning of this year. I felt burnout in just my work life. This is the time of year where teachers start to feel very burnt out. I felt burnout in being in my house too much and cooking what feels like way too many meals over and over and over again. Just the simple daily life things. I think the winter really brought that out in a lot of us, and it certainly did in me. When I talk about burnout here, I am talking about something that I think, like I said, we all experience, not necessarily a clinical burnout that can be diagnosed, but rather that feeling of being just dead tired, exhausted all the time, feeling down and out, feeling unhappy and not knowing why in the midst of your daily routine that is typically normal for you, feeling apathy, a loss of passion for the normal things that you love to do. These are just all different ways to describe what burnout feels like, at least to me. It might feel a little bit different to you, but I just wanted to give you a picture of what exactly I'm talking about here. And also just a quick note that feelings of unhappiness and apathy and just burnout in general, they're not always to be taken lightly. You know if this is something that is somewhat normal that you've experienced before, or if it's something that maybe you are having a hard time coming out of and something you should talk to someone about. So I think what happens is when we start to feel burnout, it can give us the urge to start to reach for things to make us feel better about ourselves. I'm saying this because it definitely does that to me. When we start to feel burnt out, we start to feel bad about ourselves. Why do I feel this way? These are the normal things that I do every day. These are the things I'm responsible for doing. These are the things I am supposed to be doing. These are the things I typically enjoy doing. So why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I cannot cook another dinner? Why do I feel like I cannot focus in my workday? Why do I feel like I have a loss of passion for the things I usually love? And we start to tear ourselves down. We wish we could do more. We wish we could figure it out and have it all together and be more organized and power through this burnout and get back to our normal selves. And instead of trying to figure out what it is we need in that moment and make an action plan to rest and breathe and really tap into the things that fill us up, because that's what we need in those moments. If we're burnt out, then we are kind of empty, right? So we need filled back up. But instead of doing that, oftentimes that feeling of not feeling great about ourselves, that tearing ourselves down, I feel like it often makes us lean on more, on the idea of more. Can I buy something that's going to help me feel better? Can I do something more? Can I get a new planner and make a new to-do list? And maybe if I just organize it a better way, or if I just can find a new time management skill that's going to help me manage it all, I'm going to become better. I'm going to get through this burnout. I just think that's at least my thought process. That's what I lean on, because rest is not a celebrated thing in our culture. It is not positioned as a needed thing. Typically, the ability to do more, the busy life, the hustle, those are the things that are valued. So when we're feeling burnt out, we are feeling super tired, and so we feel like we're doing it wrong, right? We are not doing the things that are valued. We need the thing that is not valued, that is not sexy, and that is rest. So instead of leaning on that, we often kind of fall into other things. They don't really heal us. They just kind of put a Band-Aid on the wound. I just want to encourage you to find a rhythm of rest that you can lean on when you're feeling this way, but also regularly, so that you don't get to this burnout point as fast or as often. So instead of choosing something that is going to ease our burnout pain for a momentary fix, like shopping or alcohol or a donut or a new goal that we could reach for that doesn't actually even make sense for us and who we are and what we care about deep down. So I personally sat down and I made a list about things that I need to do less when I'm feeling this way, when I'm starting to feel burnt out, and things that I need to do more when I'm feeling this way. Because even though we tend to reach for more to make ourselves feel better that we are feeling burnt out, there are things that we could do more of during this time when we are feeling burnt out that will help. It's just not the things that we typically reach for. So as I talk to you about my list, which I hope is applicable to you in some way, but it doesn't have to be because it is personal to me, my hope is that you will take this concept and make a list for yourself. Maybe you'll take some of my items because they'll work for you as well, but I hope that you'll add to it. Whether it's something you need to lean on right now or something you need to add as a weekly routine for yourself to kind of to kind of lean on this less or more list, or it's kind of an emergency fix when you are getting to the place of burnout. You get to decide all of that. I just wanted to share these ideas with you, the things that really have been helping me come to a better place, come out of this feeling of being burnt out, being tired. So let me start with a less list. I actually only have 3 things on my less list, even though there could definitely be more. I just focused on these things. I have 3 things on my less list. I could definitely have more, but less is more when it comes to these lists, right? Because these are kind of our fix in times where we're burnt out. It's easier to have less to choose from if we're feeling burnt out. When I am feeling burnt out, I need to, number one, for sure, consume less. I realize that when I'm feeling burnt out, it's easy to reach for my phone to kind of pacify that feeling and escape. So I need to consume less when I'm feeling burnt out. So one practical way that I do this, something I always do, most days, I should say, not always, but most days I take a walk outside. I take a walk for about a mile and I take my dog. But usually while I do this, I listen to a podcast, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I would love it if you listen to this podcast on a walk. However, if we're feeling burnt out, sometimes I think the volume that we consume in a day, whether it's emails that we have to read because of work, or consuming all of the millions of requests from our children, or actually consuming media like the news and a TV show and social media and a podcast and everything else, we need to rein that in because that is overwhelming. I think it's overwhelming on a normal day, but it's definitely overwhelming if we're feeling burnt out. So lately, I've been challenging myself to a silent mile. Other than my dog affirmations and talking to my dog, this is one way I'm aiming to consume less. It's really easy to never be alone with our thoughts in this world of the internet and YouTube and podcasts and social media. And being alone with our thoughts is an important place to be. Creativity, ideas, prayers, all of those good things happen in those moments where we are alone with our thoughts. So I need to consume less whenever I am feeling burnt out, and maybe you do too. I encourage you to consume less so that you can be alone with your thoughts and so that you can just breathe and maybe not think at all for a little bit. But most of all, to be less bombarded by the constant do more message that social media or podcasts or any type of media that we consume can often make us feel. There's a lot of anxiousness that comes with constantly consuming media. So consuming less is definitely a good first item on this list. The next item on my list, on my less list, is to-do list less. So I want less on my to-do list. I know it was weird the way I just said that, so I wanted to clarify. But I get it. We're all adults here, and we all have responsibilities. But if I'm feeling burnt out, I need to keep my to-do list shorter. And I want to kind of pose that question to you. Can you keep your to-do list shorter in a time where you are feeling burnt out? Or maybe you could throw away the to-do list in general and just give yourself one non-negotiable per day for a temporary period of time. When your energy is back and when burnout is far, far away, you can return to the to-do list. But this personally helps me because if I'm being honest, I'm not good at to-do lists anyways. A long list is never going to get all checked off for me. It doesn't really hold me accountable. I don't really care if the check boxes aren't checked off. So a to-do list doesn't even really help me, and a long to-do list only makes me feel worse about myself because I never actually achieve it anyways. So if I'm feeling burnt out, I remind myself of who I am and my ability to check off a to-do list. And I remind myself to keep that to-do list to 3 things or less each day. And the rest I'll get to another day. Now, this looks a little bit different because I do use lists for my work tasks. I use them to organize things I need to do for the podcast. But in a season of burnout, I try to keep those lists to just the priorities, even if there are a few different lists that I'm following throughout the day. And I try to even prioritize which list is most important. Okay, if I've had a work list, a podcast list, a home to-do list, and I have a deadline to meet at work, then my work to-do list takes precedence. And if I don't even touch that home to-do list, oh well, I'm feeling burnt out right now, and I need to focus on what is most important to get done, and I need to keep the to-do list as short as possible. And remember that my worth is not in how much I can get done. I just need to get done what I'm responsible for, and I can keep going on the other things tomorrow. My ability to do it all in a day is 1, it doesn't really exist for any of us, but 2, it does not define me. It does not define my importance and my impact in this world. And it doesn't define you either. So maybe you constantly try to keep up with a long to-do list. If so, this might be a good item to add to your less list for your burnout prevention plan that we are writing right now. The last item on my less list is to expect less. I guess this goes along with the to-do list less, but it's more than that. If you're feeling burnt out, expect less of yourself right now in general. It can be really easy to be angry at ourselves for not being able to constantly go. But honestly, we just aren't made to live like that. Stress responses come into play. Our bodies fight against us. We go into fight or flight mode, even though we are trying to tell ourselves, this is okay, this is normal, this is how I'm supposed to go through my daily life. Our bodies fight against it because it's clear that we are meant to rest. And our bodies will let us know when we are not doing that, when we are not doing that enough. So if you're feeling burnt out, there's a good chance you need to expect less of yourself for a while with the utmost grace and love while you do so. Less doing, less keeping up. And what does this look like in practicality? Because you can't just wake up and be like, okay, today I'm going to expect less of myself and just expect it to happen throughout the day. I think practically this looks like looking at all the things you're responsible for doing in a day and deciding what things you're going to just let go for a little bit. Like maybe you typically keep a pretty tidy house, but right now you're feeling super burnt out and you have other things you need to attend to, and you're just gonna take that down a notch. You're gonna let the kids' mess live a little bit for a day before you clean it up. You're going to only tidy up the house once a day instead of 3 times a day. Just little things that you can let go of. And it doesn't have to be forever, just for this short period of time until you're feeling your energy back. This could also look like delegating, asking for help. I say that a million times on this podcast, and so many of my guests have said the same. Asking for help is so important, and the people that you love, they want to help you. So take a second to think if expecting less would be helpful for you in a season where you're feeling burnt out and what that would look like practically for you. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I want to take a second to thank the sponsors that are helping make this episode of With Intention possible. If you've been a longtime listener of the show, you know that I love talking about Prepdish, and they are a longtime sponsor of the show, and they're one of my favorite companies that help you out with meal planning. I know I get burnout on meal planning, and maybe you do too, but whether you experience burnout or you just don't have the time for meal planning each week, Prepdish is the perfect option. And I'm super excited that they have a new menu option that is specifically designed to save you time. The new Superfast menu allows you to get all of your prep done in under 1 hour. No more scrambling at each meal. Instead, go into mealtime with a plan. And with the new super fast menus, you can go into it with a super fast and easy meal plan. This super fast menu is in addition to their other menus, their paleo, their keto, and gluten-free options. No matter which menu option you choose, Prepdish just makes eating healthy so much easier, and the meals are also always delicious. As a busy mom, everyone, including myself, sometimes gets a little cranky during this time, and the last thing I want to do is be thinking about a meal, thinking about what I'm supposed to get on the table, and cooking it up from scratch. Prepdish takes away that guesswork, and it takes a lot of work off of dinner time. So if you want to simplify the whole meal planning thing, definitely check Prepdish out. The best part is that Allison, the founder, is offering listeners of With Intention a 2-week free trial, so you've got nothing to lose. That's literally 2 weeks of meals planned out for you, grocery list and prep included, for free. Head to prepdish.com/withintention to try it out. That's prepdish.com/withintention. I also want to thank She's Birdie. Safety is something that is always in the back of my mind, whether I'm walking the loop around my neighborhood or running errands with my daughter, and I'm so excited to share Birdie with you because it gives me such a peace of mind. Birdie is a personal safety alarm. It's designed to be easy to carry and simple to use, and when you activate it with a quick pull, the alarm emits a loud 130 decibel siren with a flashing strobe light to help deter an attack. Unlike pepper spray or other deterrents, it's safe for you. There's no danger to you. You can feel confident using it without worry. It goes wherever you do, and I personally keep mine latched onto my small bag, which I carry everywhere with me, even on walks. But you can also latch it onto your keys or anything else you carry with you most places. Mine is bright yellow, but there are lots of other colors to choose from. I even got some and gave them to family members and friends, and I just love the fact that Birdie helps me feel safe, prepared, and my mind is at ease wherever I go. Right now, She's Birdie is offering listeners of With Intention 15% off your first purchase when you go to shesbirdie.com/intention. Again, go to shesbirdie.com/intention for 15% off your order. SHESBIRDIE.com/intention for the exclusive deal for podcast listeners of 15% off. All right, let's get back to today's episode. So now I'm going to move on to my more list. These are things that I want to do more of in a season of burnout, things that will help me get out of that place of burnout. And they are just things that fill me up in a time where I'm feeling burnt out. And again, make your own list, but take my ideas if they work for you. So number one really goes along with my number one from the last list, is to get outside more. My daily walk that I was talking about in my less list is one way I do that, but fresh air and nature literally are game changers. There's a bunch of science to back that up, but I'm going to do less right now and not go on and find a bunch of studies to explain that, because if you want to know more about that, you can look it up yourself. I am not a scientist, so really me finding studies for you is just as good as you finding them for yourselves. In a season of burnout, I don't think you need proof that nature is going to help you. I would say just try it. Just go outside more. Breathe in the fresh air, especially now as, at least in the US, we are starting to get close to spring. Obviously, some areas of the country are warmer than others. Here in Pennsylvania, it really is both feeling warmer and still very cold at the same time at different parts of the day. But there is a little bit more sunshine than there was just a week or two ago, and I am soaking that in, just truly trying to get outside as much as possible with my daughter or by myself or with the whole family. However I can get it, I try to get outside as much as possible, and that helps me relax. It helps me just get me into a more restful place and get out of my head a little bit more. The second thing on my more list is to do something I enjoy more. I kept that one a little bit vague, but for me, something I enjoy that I admittedly don't give myself time to do much of lately is reading. And that's something that really fills me up. It helps me rest and relax, and I just love doing it. So it's something that is on this list because if I'm feeling burnt out, I think consuming less, like I had on the last list, and putting down my phone to consume less media in that way, and just picking up a fiction book, something that is light, something that I can rest while I enjoy a story. I know it's technically consuming something, but it's a totally different type of consuming. What lights you up? What is something that you enjoy doing? Are you doing any of those things right now? Or could you do more of them? Could you do one thing you enjoy a little more often, once a week, or even carve out time for it once a day? Something that is going to fill you up. The next item on my list is to connect more. And I don't mean on social media because we are consuming less, but I do mean connecting with the people in your actual life. So connecting with your family, connecting with the people in your household, texting a friend, actually seeing a friend, if you feel comfortable with that right now. That is a game changer. I think just seeing people, even if you're an introvert, connecting with people that you feel close to, people that you feel comfortable with, I do think that that can help us come out of that place of burnout. Another thing that goes along with this is connecting with your faith. If that is a part of your life, that is a huge thing for me, that when I am feeling burnt out, a lot of times I realize that I have not been praying much. I have not been connecting with my faith much, and that is something that can easily throw me into burnout as well, because that's something that really centers me each day. If I'm not giving time to it, then I can easily just find myself doing more throughout the day and putting myself in a place of burnout. And the last item on the list, which I know I'm being repetitive with this one, but I am going to go ahead and do it, ask for help more. In the expect less of yourself category from my less list, I did mention that that might practically look like asking for help. But for me, if I am feeling burnout, I want that reminder on my more list. I want it in both places. I think that this is probably the biggest way to get yourself out of a place of burnout. Can you have someone watch your kids for a short amount of time? Can you just get help with some of your household tasks or help with a work task. If you have way too much on your plate, ask for help more in a time of burnout. And that is it for my more list. When I started thinking about making myself a kind of rescue plan for when I'm feeling in this place of burnout, I started also thinking of it as a rescue plan, but also a prevention plan. And just personally, these things started to be organized into more and less lists for me. And so I made a more and less list that I just talked to you about here today. But I hope that you take this idea and run with it if it's something that you think would help you. Maybe it's not organized into a more or less list for you. Maybe it looks totally different. Maybe it's just a list of 5 things that are going to help you in a time where you're feeling burnt out. Maybe it's a list of 3 things you need to do daily, 3 emergency things for when you are already feeling burnt out, 3 things you need to do daily to prevent burnout, and then, another 3 things that are more so an emergency list of helping you when you're already feeling in that place of burnout. I just think having some type of blueprint, some type of plan for prevention, but also just helping you get out of that place. Because when it comes down to it, I don't think we can fully prevent this. We all have a lot on our plates, and unless we have found this perfect spot where we are just living slow and living intentionally, and we've perfected our everyday life, which I can imagine there's not many of us who have, we all might end up getting to this place of feeling burnout, of feeling a loss of passion, feeling apathy towards our daily tasks, feeling just so tired that we don't know if we can do another day without flipping out on our family or just being frustrated and annoyed by every task that we have to do. When you are feeling those things, you do not have to reach for more. You do not have to reach for momentary things to pacify you. It's not that those little things can never help. It's just that they don't help in the long run. They're not a long-term fix. So I hope that you take some time to make a list for yourself, or just take some time to think about, if you are feeling burnout right now, what are just a few things that you can do, that you can implement to get yourself out of that place. And that's my challenge to you today. Take about 10 or 20 minutes to think about that. Make your own do more, do less list, or your own version of the idea of a burnout plan in general. And then go do the things if you need to right now. Go do the emergency things or do the prevention things that maybe you haven't been doing. Maybe something that really fills you up that you need to implement back into your daily life. I hope you'll do that to make yourself better for you and for the people around you, and to give yourself the rest that we are designed to have. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or share it on Instagram or wherever you like to share things. I am so grateful for you for doing that. Thank you so much for listening in. I am always grateful you're here, and I will talk to you right back here again on the next episode.